Hey there, hi there, ho there. Welcome once again to another broadcast of Spleen Squeezins coming to you live over the internet. It's 11/29/2018, 8:59 in the morning. And we're just getting started. And I'm doing this. Why am I doing this? Because the instant I start thinking about doing it later, I realize I'm going to be too tired to do it later. So here we are. Now, let's see. Getting things started, getting things rolling, turning on the slideshow, getting other things set up. Yeah, we're ready to roll. Yeah. Yeah. Got my soundboard quality me speak English good.
Me talk good someday.
The sound effects are coming to you courtesy of myinstance.com. A little internet live Foley board setup that lets me do things like this. Yeah. Sound effect board. I love it. I'm making my own soundboard at the moment. You know, picking buttons out, adding them.
This is Sparta!
Well, no, actually, it isn't. It's Ohio. But we'll add this button anyway. Here we go. Add this button in there. I like it. Begging your pardon, excuse me. Big yawn. I've got quite a few things sort of stacked up that I need to do, and I'm trying to decide on what to do first. But, meanwhile, I'm sort of bopping back and forth, checking a few files here. Let's see here. Checking the Gmail. Stupid computer. It's getting a little laggy. Got emails from my mother. It's always important to respond to your mother when she sends you an email. And let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. I love this. Got a question on Quora. Adam Ritter, why does Lord of the Rings seem harder than, it wasn't Adam Ritter. Somebody else had asked the question. Why does Lord of the Rings seem harder than Harry Potter to read? Aren't they both considered children's literature? There are some people who get things just get things so wrong that you don't even know where to begin answering their questions. Children's literature. Look, the concept of children's literature is in reality, a very fuzzy one, to say the least. To paraphrase C.S. Lewis, when I was a teenage boy, I wouldn't have been caught dead reading fairy tales. And now that I am a man of 40, I read them with full and thorough enjoyment, and not think a thing of it. When I was a man, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish things, including the very childish need to be thought of as oh so very adult. That is an interesting thing. My parents used to give me grief all the time. Why are you watching cartoons? You're a 12-year-old boy. What are you watching cartoons for? What are you watching cartoons for? I'm like, this is, because it's the most intelligent thing on the television. It's I'm like, what does that have to do with it? Not a thing. Not a thing. This is, how do you deal with people that just, aren't even operating on the same wavelength as you? They mock you for watching cartoons at the age of 12 or 13. See, that's kiddie stuff. But then they're presented with animation that is not, kiddie stuff, and they get all torqued out of shape about that. That's too, it's like their paradigm refuses to shift without a clutch, I phrased that wrong, but you want to shift their paradigm, but they've stripped the clutch. You can say there are some people. It's so extraordinary. You run into these people. You'll meet them in your life. You can say things to them straight to their face, and they will only hear what their preconceived notions regurgitated back at them. You can say square, and they hear circle. I mean, you can sit them down and say, what is a circle? It's round, it has no corners, right? Uh-huh. And what is this here? It's got how many sides? 4. And how many corners? 4. So that makes it a what? Circle. They cannot conceive of what you're trying to explain to them. And you're at a loss. How do you communicate with these creatures? There is no common tongue. There is no Rosetta Stone. There is no basic language. They don't even have the same language. They don't even have the same concepts. And you cannot seem to enlighten them. It's a baffling concept. You have to sit down and dismantle the language almost to explain things to them. Yeah, Mark, I'm up real early today. I'm trying to decide what to do first. We've got a bit of a stack of things to do here. So, among other things, I've got stuff that I'm supposed to have some. I think I'll start with that. I'm supposed to have a monthly desktop for my Patreon. and then that is, and then I'm behind on that. So I think I'll work on that first. Do a little work on that, and I'll get I'm a couple of months behind. Let's see here. Commissions, Warcrafter, documents, Patreon desktops. That one I was working on. I really need to find a better renaming. I need to rename these files because the names I picked, they're in alphabetical order, not chronological order, and it's making it a little difficult to find certain things. Okay, here we go. Okay, well, why isn't it showing here? Which window is it not showing? Okay, there we go. I don't know why it wasn't working right. There we go. Gonna do a little more re-exploring of the idea of the flying castle. I'm debating on whether to try and do it paint style or hand line drawing. Each one has potential. I feel tired all the time, so I'm trying to shake that off right now. I actually got out of bed at about 5 in the morning. Wait, I'm just checking. In fact, I think I will try painting it a little first. sky. I did take some actual classes in using pastels and paints and such. Been quite a few years though since those classes. The earth tones are always a little more difficult to get. The idea here being is that here's the castle up above, and here's the peasant village down below. It's from an old. It came to mind from an old description that Terry Pratchett made of a medieval castle, medieval palace. He said it's a lot like a swan floating on a lake. You look at it above the waterline, it's all stately and serene and and pristine. But under the surface of the water, there's a hell of a lot of activity going on. And I figure you got a floating castle. You gotta basically what you start out with is a floating rock. And some genius gets the idea, let's build a floating castle underneath there. And they take it and they build up on top of it, and they have this great big, enormous castle on top. But what about the peasants? What about the working class people? Where do they go? Well, you've got a floating island. You've only got a minimal amount of room. So eventually, a lot of the stuff up top, all the craftsmen and the workers and the peasants, their housing and their and their shops and everything would eventually either they would have to burrow down into the rock, which considering the rock is holding everybody up is not a good idea, or they migrate down underneath, so they're hanging from underneath, sort of a hanging garden sort of thing. Except with houses and cottages. Of course, ever since Avengers Age of Ultron sort of underlined it to me, I sort of came to the conclusion that maybe a flying castle wasn't such a hot idea. Because you don't realize, you do the math, you suddenly start, you start realizing just how much damage a falling castle would do. I'm not good enough with the math. I don't know the math well enough to do it, but I know enough about it to go, wait a minute, yeah, that could be spectacularly bad and far worse than you think it would be. Because you take what has to be at least a megaton, 1,000 ton, 1,000 tons of rock. How much does a mountain weigh? That's about the, even a fairly small castle would be sitting on something equivalent to a, I don't know. You take it up, you take it up a mile and drop it, and it'd be the equivalent of an atom bomb going off. You don't necessarily have to hit orbital altitudes for the consequences of dropping something off the side to be disastrous. If you can follow what I'm saying here. Look at the destruction that was caused just by the fall of the Twin Towers. They were sitting on the ground. Someday I may sit down and actually haggle my way through the math to figure out just how big a boom it would be. There are things online that let you calculate the consequences of an impact, meteorite impact, everything up from a little meteorite to all the way up to a gigantic asteroid, and composed of whatever you care to name. It'll raise your eyebrows. Some of it will. On the other hand, a castle like this, a flying castle, it would be a natural weapon of war. It would be able to fly over a target and just drop things on it, just drop boulders on it, or steel lances. Yeah, they'd be able to rain death on their enemies from above. destroying their enemies wouldn't, well, it doesn't bear much thinking about. It's a morbid sort of. Looks more like a city actually at this point than it does a castle. Needs a little work. It's going to take a little work to get there. Let's see, I gotta get one for September, October, and November. Ow. Boy. Ouch. Excuse me. Let's see here. Yeah, that's the problem with most flying cities. Most writers don't stop to speculate how garbage or trash or waste is disposed of. Now, I mean, if you got a great, if it's, it could be that the engines that keep it aloft also are used to incinerate whatever trash they produce, whatever waste. But still, take into consideration the cloud cities in My Little Pony. What do you want to bet the reason that the Earth ponies really weren't fond of the ancient Earth ponies weren't really fond of the Pegasus ponies had more to do with how they disposed of their garbage. Having Pegasus, having the Pegasus live in the clouds, poor writing. It really is. It would be, all cutesy, it's all cutesy pootsy and, fanciful and whimsical and all that. Well, the problem is it's a terrible idea. I pointed out in my writing, there's nothing, there's nothing up there. They'd have plenty of water, but that's it. Everything that they have, everything that they own, they don't even really have shelter. Because, rain falls through clouds. They have no way to store, they have no way, they probably have to go to extreme lengths to make storage in the clouds for the anything that isn't them. I mean, imagine it. You can't even set your hat down on a table because it won't fall through the floor. If you aren't wearing, if the Pegasi aren't wearing it or carrying it, it has to be enchanted in some way to float on clouds like they do, which has got to cost, which has got to cost them a fortune, which has got to add all sorts of effort to everything they do. They have no way to grow crops. And the way they dispose of sewage has probably made real great friends with their neighbors. The only reason anyone would have for being in the clouds in the first place, one, ego, and two, military tactical. So long as you don't care about personal comfort or anything else, it's a great tactical position to wage a war from. So long as you don't mind your supply chain having a few hundred extra links. Yep. Problem with living in the sky in any form or shape, the only thing up there with you is what you bring with you. Now, if the Pegasi had been living on mountaintops, that I could see to some extent, because that gives them, if they're willing to walk down a nice long road, they'll have access to, to the good stuff down in the valleys. But clouds, even when I first saw I remember the first episode they showed a Pegasus walking on a cloud. It was. It was actually Call of the Cutie, that episode that about Apple Bloom getting stressed out about her cutie mark. That was the very first time you saw a Pegasus walking on a cloud, if I'm remembering correctly. And even then, I was like, they're just being a little bit too twee, you know, a little bit too cutesy pootsy. Oh, they fly, therefore they can walk in clouds. Yeah. Even if they lived on, like, flying islands, I could see that, to some extent. I could see that. But on clouds, no. No, it just doesn't work. Of course, nobody's listening to me. You know, it really is ridiculous. It really is ridiculous that I'm a 47-year-old man quibbling about a children's cartoon. A little girl's cartoon, no less. So, well, you know. You can either be in denial about it or embrace it, you know what I'm saying? So what are you gonna do? You gonna sit and mope, or just enjoy what you got? You know. And very well, we're taking it too seriously. You know. You take all this stuff too seriously. I'm like, yes, thank you. I never noticed. What is your recommended cure? If it wasn't one thing to fixate on, I'd probably fixate on something else. lot of work for a little detail. So, sorry about that, folks. Little OBS disconnectivity going on there. Don't know what happened. Just it does that from time to time. Just hiccups. But let me take a little break. I'm gonna take a little break from this. My hands are cramping. Well, let's see. Trying to check out some stuff here, see what's in here. I think I'm having a what kind of life am I leading kind of moment here. I don't know. Just, I'm a 47-year-old man obsessed with children's toys and games and stories and cartoons. Not much I can, change about that. I don't know. Now, excuse me. Let's do pardon me, a quick email check. Checking Facebook too. Checking a few things. So yet another story. Social media leads to depression. And look. I am old enough to remember when there were people out there who seriously, they spent money on this research. Okay, I remember when they did this. You had all these experts running around saying that video game arcades, were causing juvenile delinquency. I'm old enough to remember all the different scaremongering they did about various. You want to start a scare, you want to start a social crisis. It's very simple. Find something that kids like. And give it to a bunch of kids. Wait 5 minutes. There'll be somebody coming along insisting that it's corrupting the youth. I'm really tired of that. I'm finishing up my 5th decade on this planet. I'm really tired of this. I really am. Let's see, it's here. Let's see if I can find that. I'm looking for something. Look, back in the 1800s, there were people complaining that people were reading too many books, spending all their time reading books instead of looking at the world around them. There were experts that complained that that we weren't socializing anymore in the 1900s because we were all sitting around reading our newspapers. The moment telephones were invented, people were griping about that. Really, it's it's stupid. I remember when every generation, if it's new and it's shiny and kids like it, there seems to be this sort of moral obligation among this certain segment of the population to come out and insist, put on their lab coats, run out the front door, and soberly report that this is poisoning the children and it's going to bring about the end of the world and global warming and cause bad hair days and really. No, it wasn't. I think you're thinking of not Death of a Salesman about pool halls. Pool halls, that was The Music Man. I've never seen either of those, but I remember enough about them to remember that. Some sort of traveling preacher, or trouble with a capital P, trouble with a capital T, which rhymes with P, it stands for pool. Excuse me, I'm out. Anyway, I'm so sick of hearing yet another story about how cell phones and smartphones and the internet is poisoning humanity to death. Look, what is it about people that no matter how good something is, no matter how much of a positive, no matter how much of a positive contribution it makes to society, there's somebody out there decrying it as the doom of humanity. There are people out there that are saying that, that are quoting Bible verses, claiming that they prove that the increase in technology and knowledge and science is a sign of the end times. We are learning things at an insane rate. It's the doomsday. Nothing is good news to these people. We invent something that literally connects every human being on the planet, enables us to communicate at the speed of light with people all the way around the globe. Enables progress in 1,000 different ways. Betters the lives of millions. And this is terrible, terrible news to these people. There's no such a thing as a good news to these people. It's terrible. I'm just sick of them. I'm so sick of them. I'm a 47-year-old old fart, and I'm sick of old farts. I'm sick of these people that give me, these are signs of the times. It's the end times. Look, this is happening in this corner of the world. This is happening in this corner of the world. It was as the prophets predicted. It's the end times, the return of Christ and the tribulation and the apocalypse, and it's all happening right now here in River City. Horse leavings. There hasn't been a single period in history since the resurrection of Christ that people haven't been able to look at the current times and interpret them as signs of the end times. Personally, I'm a little tired of it. You know when the end of the world's going to happen? At the end of the world. That's all we know. Look, the only thing we know for certain, the only thing we can guess about, even since the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the only thing we know about the end of the world and about the return of Christ or the apocalypse, the only thing we know is that the only thing we have learned for certain in the last 2,000 plus years about when the end times are coming is that, well, they're 2,000 years closer. The end of the world, you get up in the morning, the end of the world is one day closer than it was when you got up yesterday. And that's all you know. That's all anybody knows. Jesus flat out said that even he doesn't know when he's coming back. Which makes for an interesting speculation. And this is my personal theory, is that the reason that Jesus does not know is because it's a function of free human will. This is I haven't got any gospel to back it up. I haven't got any theological studies or anything to back it up. But from what I've read of the Bible and what I've how things are put and how Jesus phrased it and how this is my suspicion, is that it's not a countdown. It's a barometer. When Jesus was saying, all these signs that are listed, I think what Jesus was saying is that when the time is right, when the conditions have finally reached a certain point, that's when Christ will return. And they could happen at any time. Much in the same way when the barometric pressure drops below a certain point, rain's coming. And why do I say it? Why do I say it's a function of human free will? because we are given free will about what we are going to do with the message of the gospel, whether we are going to accept it or reject it, each of us individually. And that free will is one of the most important things, apparently, in creation, because God has given it such leeway. And that's the reason that Jesus, who is God, he is also the Word of God. And God has not spoken the Word on when Jesus is going to return. Now, this is a lot of ideas, sort of intertangled together. So, I'm no theologian, and I'm not, deeply educated in the Gospels. But this is the inkling I get. This is the suspicion I have. Is that he has given humanity free will, which means is that he, nothing is set in stone, is what I'm saying. The broad brushstrokes, maybe? But all the fine details, those are up for grabs. That's just my theory. It doesn't mean anything. And really, it doesn't sway things one way or the other. It doesn't change a thing. No more than all these people running around, oh, it looks like the end times. They're not doing a thing either. They're not changing a thing. They're not helping a thing. They're just fretting needlessly and making themselves go bald prematurely. They are not contributing to anything to the gospel. They're not taking anything away, but they're not helping either. We'll just call it a rule of thumb. When the common wisdom, when the common horse sense wisdom of the common wisdom of the Christian community starts sounding like the common wisdom of the secular left, it's time to stop and go, wait a minute, and check ourselves. This was the first thing that changed my opinion about, about things like legalized drugs and the use of alcohol. Because I started noticing that all the pious religious arguments against letting other people use some drugs sounded an awful lot like the same sort of rationalizations that the gun grabbers used to disarm the populace. And I'm like, and if those arguments were fundamentally flawed and null and void for the purposes of gun control, then they're just as flawed for the purposes of drug control. They're two separate things, yes, but they both work on the same sort of logic. 2 + 2 equals 4, whether you're talking about apples or oranges. Now, I noticed that these doomsayers, these people who obsess about the book of Revelations and about the end times and about the signs of the times, and who go sifting through the newspaper looking for signs that the end of the world is nigh, well, first of all, they're cherry picking. Second of all, everything that they find, they interpret through the apocalypse-colored lenses of their glasses, and they sound suspiciously like the environmental loonies who are out there insisting that we are going to all be punished for our environmental sins with global warming. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. We're sounding like these. We're starting to sound an awful lot like these nutburgers who are out there who are insisting that we are going to be punished by Mommy Gaia for using plastic to wrap things. You know, no. Let's back up and check ourselves here. What are we adding to the gospel? Little or nothing. You know, we are not. What, or rather to say, what are we contributing to the gospel message? Little or nothing. Yeah, we'll go into the arguments about drugs versus, drug use and drug control later, Mark and Eric. There's a fundamental flaw in the thinking. There's a fundamental flaw in the thinking of controlling guns and controlling drugs. You can look. Saying that you might hurt somebody if you use this, no, it's not an argument. What it comes down to is that both gun control and drug control rely upon treating other human beings as if they are not capable of making independent moral decisions. Treating them as children, in other words. People should be held accountable for what they do to other people, but, it's ethical to condemn somebody for drunk driving, because that is a moral decision made by somebody that directly affects other human beings. But criminalizing them for using alcohol, full stop. No, wait a minute. That just basically runs on the assumption that there's no such thing as temperance. No, drugs do not. Abuse of drugs destroys independent thinking mechanisms. Just as abusing a gun will destroy your life. I guarantee you, abusing a gun will destroy your life a lot quicker and a lot more thoroughly. Came to the conclusion long ago that the Bible does not condemn the use of alcohol or of any other substance. It condemns drunkenness, excess. Now, I know that it also condemns drunkenness in the same breath as gluttony. You don't see too many people in the Baptist church giving up their casserole dish, do you? Now, for those who don't know, Baptists we're famous for our fellowship dinners. Now, depending on the church, they'll happen about once a month. Everybody brings a casserole dish, a potluck dinner. Everybody brings a casserole dish with something in it. So, you're gonna be hard pressed to find a skinny Baptist, I think. Look, you want to condemn the abuse of drugs. You want to try and warn people away from misusing a substance or anything, or any other thing, for that matter. Misuse of anything will hurt you. Fine, but the presumption of the drug war is the same as the presumption of the gun grabbing war. It's the assumption that somehow that the substance is innately evil. It's a shift of responsibility from the person, the user, to the object. This is why the Bible says wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging, but it also says use a little wine for thy stomach's sake. And it also speaks of wine as being a blessing. Bible, straight up, the Bible doesn't condemn drinkingness. The Bible doesn't condemn drinking; it condemns drunkenness. Same moral precedent. The drug war, anyone who has observed the results of the drug war, the attempt to control what other people put in their own bodies, has resulted in worse suffering and human misery than the drugs themselves did. They criminalized, they criminalized the stuff. You get the same result both times. When they criminalized alcohol, you got the same result. When you criminalized marijuana, you got the same result. All they did is they made it incredibly profitable for criminals to smuggle the stuff around. That's what any sort of prohibition does. Any sort of tariff or tax or prohibition or any other form of material intervention trying to stop someone from using it. So it doesn't matter what the substance is. There are people out there that are smuggling artificial sweetener. I'm not kidding you. Everything, any substance no matter how innocuous, has gone through, spices, tea, sugar. You put up a prohibition against it, it suddenly becomes very profitable to break the law. All prohibition did was make bootleg rum runners and bootleggers rich. It also made a lot of people in political power more powerful. Became an excuse for violating human rights. For the It became an excuse for the law to overstep its bounds over and over again, to violate constitutional restraints. Just like the drug war has become. Look up assets forfeiture sometime. They don't have to prove, in most states of the Union, they don't have to prove that you have any illicit drugs at all. If they stop your car and they suspect that the car has been used for drugs, you know, if their drug dog smells some beef jerky in the carpet and freaks out, hey, that's enough for them. They can confiscate your car. They can confiscate all your money. In fact, simply having too much money on hand is grounds for them in many states to confiscate your money, to lock up your car, to, you know, just, and getting it back, good luck. It's a gravy train for the police force. Prohibition is a desire, it's the pathological desire of people to control other human beings, not to help them. If you wanted to help people who are addicts, you'd go out and help addicted people. You don't arrest them and throw them in prison with Bubba butt rape.
He was going to destroy his he was going to destroy his life with drugs, so we're going to destroy it with prison first.
Can't get from point A to point B like that. Authoritarian prohibition does not solve the problem. In fact, it makes the problem worse. It makes it it goes from being a social illness to being a source of social violence. And a rationalization for all sorts of unjust forms of oppression. You can't make good people out of bad people by holding a gun to their heads. You can make a good person into a bad person by trying to hold a gun to their head. Exactly, Mark. There are all sorts of medicines, life-saving medicines, that can cause those problems. What is the end result of drug control? It's you result in a system where the government is the only one who decides what medications are submitted, what pills are put in your body. The control freaks in the government love the idea. I bet you there's more than one who would like to issue a law requiring that everybody be on Ritalin mandatorily. It makes the assumption, it's prohibition and regulation, it's the assumption that only the government is wise enough to decide how you are to be medicated or not medicated, what substances you eat, drink, and otherwise imbibe. It's led to, look at the slippery slope that we've already slid down. Look at the slippery slope we've already slid down. First, it was, hard drugs. Well, actually, it was originally, first it was prohibition, which was against alcohol. Then the prohibition started, winding down, and there were several political figures who were, just starting to be on the up and rise, up the ladder, using prohibition and the against alcohol as a leg up. And they saw that leg up was disappearing, so they turned around and tried to find something else to scare the populace about. And they found marijuana. And then they got the drug war rolling. Almost the moment that the ink was dry on the constitutional amendment revoking the prohibition. And nobody cared, they're only going after the drunks. No, they went after everybody. There are people out there, there were people who died in the crossfire. You know what I'm saying? Innocent people who had nothing to do with either side. And so they started the drug war, and the same problem got bigger. And suddenly, they're going after this drug and that drug and the other, and they started going, and now they've got zero tolerance in schools, where if one kid hands another kid an aspirin, they both get suspended. They've got regulations out there that, just absolutely insane. They've got, they went from that to tobacco. They went from alcohol. They went from alcohol to drugs, to marijuana. Then they went from marijuana to tobacco. And they went from tobacco. Now they're trying to outlaw things like caffeine and sugar. Seriously, they were out there. They were out there trying to sue somebody over trans fats. You know how trans fats got in foods? Because the health Nazis came out there, saw them, saw that there was all this fat going into food. Animal fats, butter, milk, lard, so on and so forth. And they didn't like that, and the trans fats were invented as a substitute for regular fats. When the trans fats came out first, at first when they came out, all the health nuts were singing the praises. And then they found out the trans fats weren't particularly good for you, and so they, instead of saying, whoops, we got it wrong, go ahead and put real food back in, they started suing the food companies. There were people out there trying to sue Nabisco for making Oreos with cream filling. Even the Nazis didn't climb that far up the people's rear ends. trying to control what they eat and drink. Look, you got two traits right there. The prohibition. One, it doesn't work. Two, well, you got several traits here. One, it doesn't work. Two, it causes more harm than the thing it's trying to control. And three, it gives them justification to take the next step and expand their control even further. You want to abstain entirely from alcohol? That's your choice. That's between you and God. It should not be between and it should be between. I'll spit it out in a day or two. It should be between you and God. You will note there is no space in there in the middle for government. The government's responsibility is to keep people from hurting each other. The government is supposed to protect people from those who would do them harm. Nowhere is the government supposed to protect us from ourselves. Because they do more harm than good when they try. It's a fundamentally flawed concept. When we go out of our way to ask the government to make us better people, we are asking the absolutely wrong person. We're asking the worst possible people in the world to help us with that. Now, you know, that picture of Tuck kissing Thelma. I am absolutely surprised I haven't been nattered at by the usual suspects. I'm surprised that nobody hasn't complained. Oh, that's sexual harassment. That's sexual assault. Surprises me that nobody's tried to make a fuss at me about it. To say that. All right, let's see. Let's see here. Let's see. Ah. Okay. My Manga Studio nearly crapped its pants. Come on, computer, giddy up. I don't do, like I said before, I don't do too much painting type works. Little brush here, little brush there. I don't mind telling you, I get serious cramps doing this sometimes. This one's going to take more than just a quick couple hours. Probably going to be at this one for a couple of days. picking at it. Definitely what you call impressionistic. I think I'll leave that be for a while. Just work on the next neck. Beg your pardon. My niece, my oldest niece, she is now married, and it's been less than a year, a little bit less than a year. She's already got a baby on the way. I'm going to be a great-granduncle. I'm going to be a granduncle. Or is it a great-uncle or a granduncle? Either way, I'm feeling old. I'm not telling you what I'm drawing here, but I'll let you figure it out. See if you figure it out yourself. An unusual number of my leading ladies in these cartoons have buck teeth. I've noticed rabbit, mouse, not possums aren't possum. You look up a possum. That's not a cute. That's not a cute little mousy creature, you know. Really funny. You want to look up something really funny? Look up an Australian opossum. Then look up an American opossum. There's one guy joked, it looks like America got Australia's opossum by mistake. I'm serious, man. Real life opossum. Let's say they can go from, you know, they can be cute at times, but man, you know, if they try, they can be cute. But man, if they got ugly down pat, just there. Let me see. Let me pull up a picture here. Is this? An opossum. The American opossum. Just give me a second. Everything's sort of slowing down. They're the only North American marsupial. And they are ugly. Just. How'd you like to see that pop its head out of the garbage can in the middle of the night? I had that happen to me. Parents lived out in the. We lived out in the countryside. I was had to haul the trash from the front of the house all the way out to the end of the driveway, so that the trash people would pick it up. And I'm hauling that big old trash can, and the top bag moved. You have never seen a human being levitate before. I managed it because I just backwards about 15 feet in 10 seconds, and out of that trash can came that right there. Ugly. Now you will note a serious absence of cute little buck teeth. I'm sorry. When I first drew Thelma Possum, I thought possums, were like other rodent-like creatures. They'd have buck teeth. No. I drew her with buck teeth, and I've been regretting that ever since because I got her all wrong. No. Here's the. Now here's the Australian possum. Oh, how cute, right? There's a common brushtail. Oh, yeah, common. Yeah, on the opposite side of the planet. This is what we get over here. Thank you. Cute and fluffy. Freaking fugly. Great Googa Mooga. Doesn't look right. Gotta start over. trying to find my page here. I'm trying to find. Ah, there you are. Yeah. But like I said, man, it was regular American pot. They can be cute. They can be cute. They'll be sitting there with their big, their big little black, big black shoe button eyes. Oh, they're so cute. And then they pull out the Jekyll and Hyde. And you're, oh geez, oh geez, oh geez, oh geez, oh geez. Why anything that looked like that, it would have to fake passing out to get people to leave it alone. I have no idea. You remember the movie Over the Hedge? They had William Shatner do the voice of one of the opossums. It was like the most brilliant thing I've ever seen in my life. Because this opossum, had William Shatner's voice. You couldn't help but recognize it. And he was, melodramatic as all get out. And constantly trying to lecture his daughter on how to play dead effectively. And every time he pulled like a full, stage dive, scenery chewing death whenever he faked his own. It was hilarious. That's. I've always William Shatner. I have to admire the man. He managed to turn right. It would have ended a lot of other people's careers. Back when Star Trek first left, went off the air. A lot of his co-workers had less than flattering things to say about him. He was egotist and so on and so forth. Instead of denying it or trying to change or apologize, he went with it. He rolled with it. And ever since then, he's been William Shatner, playing as William Shatner. And, just being this enormous ham. And it is, and he's made a career for himself out of it. It's kind of brilliant, if you ask me. I don't think I could keep up the. I don't think I could keep up the act. Excuse me. Oh my. I'm probably going to go off the air in a little bit. I'm just... May do another broadcast later this evening. I don't know.
This knife has a straight edge on it, so it's very easy. And maybe in our world here, there lives a happy little mountain. Straight edge on it, so it's very easy. Maybe in our world here, there lives a happy little mountain.
I don't know why. That song made me think, for some reason it made me think of an old TV show that used to be on. It was Big Blue Marble. It was a children's show. I forget what all it was about. It was one of those children's betterment shows. You know, it's all about the world in general. And, you know, and I get the impression that my parents didn't like it too much. My father didn't like it. I think he was under the suspicion he was one of those. I'm under the impression that he thought it was trying to promote a one world government, or that it was funded by UNICEF or something like that. Not sure. I remember this one cartoon came out. They only showed it on special. For some reason, they only for the longest time they only showed episodes of it. I forget how often, on Sundays for some reason. Sunday evenings. It took forever for it to get on the usual Saturday morning round. But anyway, it was called, of all things, it was called Kissy-Fur. It was about a circus bear and his dad. They escape from the circus and go out and live in the swamp. And for the life of me, I have no idea why they picked such a sissifying sounding name for that thing. But I was, it took me forever. It took ages before I found out Kissy-Fur is supposed to be another way of saying Christopher. I don't know. It wasn't intended to be a girl's show either. But still, it just makes me wonder about the choice of the name. Don't ask me why. Doing a comic strip of Tagger and Little Bit's first kiss. Well, how the years go by, don't they? I look at it. I have been doing this, let's see, since before the year 2000. Over 18 years. 18 to 20 years. Longer if you count the strips I did before I got on the internet. The drawing and stuff. Yeah. You can see how far I've gotten, it's just a stellar career, hasn't it? hasn't it been, you know? I don't know if I would have been able to handle it if I'd have been, you know, become a big success somehow. Maybe it's for the best. Everybody has a place and a purpose. Finding that place and purpose is hard. I expect very few people get it right. It's been a long time. If I'd have started drawing these characters as babies, they'd be old enough to be in college now. Go figure. And I've got just a little bit over 1,000 strips of Nip and Tuck. That is nothing. You figure, you know, Charles Schultz, for instance, one strip a day for how many years? 50 years. I think his career went 50 years without stop. Think about that. freaking years. He bypassed my number of strips done in 3 years. My word. Okay. Yeah, the stream has been getting really finicky today. I think early morning hours are kind of bad for internet service around here or something. I don't know. But, I think I'm gonna go ahead. It's been about 2.5 hours. I'm gonna go ahead and take a break and shut down for now. I think I'll be doing another broadcast later this evening if I'm well depending on how I'm feeling. But we'll go from there. Thank you all for tuning in. And you all take care of yourselves, okay? Catch you later.